Hello and welcome to I'm Not Your Tour Guide, but I am your host, Carla Skelton. So today, our guest, I was thinking about how I was going to introduce him, and I'm probably not the person in this guy's life that normally throws compliments his way, because this guy is my brother. I'm sure if you have a sibling, you know that dynamic. But to build some credibility with you guys, I want to break out some flattery. Okay. So our guest today has been to 70 countries. He lived abroad for almost 11 years. He has traversed active volcanoes, kayak through crocodile-infested water in the Amazon, and scuba dived with sharks in the Galapagos. And so he's an avid hiker, runner, climber, and is annoyingly good at any adventure that he attempts when he's traveling the world. So currently, him, his wife, and his 2 daughters recently moved back to the United States to get in some extended family time. And he is here today to tell us just a little glimpse into his trip into Nepal. So, yay. Thank you for being on, Ryan.
That was hard. Yes, of course. Sorry it took me so ungodly long to get there. Just a quick preface. The trip in total was around 5 months, but I didn't spend that whole time in Nepal.
How many months did you spend in Nepal?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I feel like it was somewhere between a month and a half and 2 months.
You know that was a good trip right there when you're not sure how long it was. Okay, so between a month and a half and 2 months in Nepal, and then the rest of the time was in India?
No. So we did. I started in Nepal, did all the hiking that I wanted there, and just got kind of tired of being cold, to be honest with you. And I mean, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and then went down to India, but not for that long. The real goal was I after India, I met Katie in Thailand. So we went Thailand for a little bit together during her spring break, and then I continued on in Thailand, and then did Laos, Vietnam, back to Cambodia, back to Thailand. Then I kind of did diving and stuff in the south, and then did Malaysia and Singapore.
I was thinking about it when I was kind of preparing for this podcast. We didn't really talk about it. And I know that's kind of part of being a traveler. If somebody hasn't done what you've done or wasn't there with you, sometimes that story may get lost in the mix. But we really haven't talked that much about this trip. I mean, do you find yourself normally bringing this up and, conversation over coffee?
No. Me and Katie have, sorry for everyone out there, Katie's my wife. We've made a note multiple times that no one here cares where you've been. We've stopped trying to work it in the conversation a long time ago. We just talk about, I don't know, kids and cars or whatever their TV shows that they want to talk about. People aren't that interested a lot of the time. I also, when you go on a trip like that, it's hard to, you don't come up with an elevator pitch for it. You know what I mean? It's an endeavor. If you want to kind of recall all your experiences, and as you said before, you don't really relate to a lot of other people depending on the experience. And then also, you kind of develop in a particular way where if you do enough of those long trips, you feel like you're bragging by talking about it, maybe. Or maybe not, I should say not people in general. I've developed in a way where I was really proud of my first couple trips, and I'll let everybody know all about it. I mean, I crafted my stories and told them a couple times to get a little better at it. And then, I don't know, I felt like I maybe have constituted that part of my identity. And so I was like, maybe I don't need to tell everyone about everything I do. And it was probably around that time. I learned a lot on that hiking trip. That's for sure. I grew a lot in Nepal. Yeah.
So I was thinking, if you had a 500-page biography about your travels, this would probably make page 60, 61, 62, right? You have so many travels and so many accomplishments, but I kind of want to carve out this moment of hiking in Nepal because it was such I don't want to say, of what I've gathered from you, a turning point in your life, but it's still, I feel like it stands out and you kind of light up a little bit more whenever you talk about Nepal. So I've been asked this before, and sometimes I have an answer, sometimes I don't, depending on the place and the person who asked. But I want to start out by asking you, why Nepal? What was your draw to that part of the world?
Very fair question. I mean, we've kind of always lived our life easily inspired, right? Like it doesn't take very much to get me to want to do something relatively crazy, right? So I can take something pretty small like a photo or something like that, and it can ignite into a flame. Right? My kindling for travel is extremely accessible. I find it everywhere, right? So it was honestly probably just something like that. I mom and dad always gave us these cool picture travel books, and I saw pictures of Nepal, and this was actually my second time to Nepal. So to preface why I wanted to spend so much time there is I went with Matthew Oakley years before.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. We don't know why we went. We can't. I tried to ask him. He was like, I'm not sure. So something made us go to Nepal. It was probably just that, right? Like just it definitely seemed adventurous. I can say that the remoteness is very attractive to me. I like that idea of non-accessibility or earning the access that you get to the country in a way, that especially that hiking drives. You kind of like earn that level of access you get to Nepal a lot of times. People don't brag about taking a helicopter to, Thorong La Pass or anything like that. You earn that pass. So that's pretty good. Also, I mean, it was exotic, and as I kind of mentioned earlier, travel is an extremely easy way to feel unique and to feel special. You don't have to be an astronaut. You don't have to have any special skills. You can just kind of, gather that courage up and then get a Lonely Planet guide. Well, this was back in the day. Get a Lonely Planet guide. And you just go to the country, right? And you are immersed and you're getting challenged and you're out of place and you're special and you're unique. And that builds something. Maybe builds is the wrong word, but creates something. So I probably, and on some base level, thought it was going to make me feel special.
So if I'm focusing more on the hiking part of what you just talked about, do you feel though, even though as a traveler, you can travel, anybody can travel, right? But the hiking part, it is more of a lonely trail. There is more solitude in that. There is more, and like you do have to earn that to be in the Khumbu region among those villages and Nepalese, the Sherpa. Like there is a certain point where you do have to earn that. It's a little bit of a challenge. So that makes you want to do it?
Sure. I can't fully explain my relationship with challenges because it doesn't seem to be like a blanket statement for challenges. It seems to be ones that align with some, I don't know, undefined ethos or fantasy I have in my head. But yeah, if it seems challenging, like I can't explain why I ran a self-supported 50-mile race. No idea. I just thought, hey, I ran a marathon. Like, I bet I could do 50. Like, that sounds like a challenge. I just remember thinking that sounds like a challenge. Like, let's try and do it. That's like months of training. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and just to go see if you can do something. Yeah, I definitely think that allure helps. So the first trip with Matt, it was more of like a normal travel trip, right? Where you just kind of go see the sites, what you kind of hear about and learn about on your way. And while we were in Pokhara, of course, the Annapurna circuit's right there. And they have a really fun, beautiful, small circuit. I think it's called the Poon Hill, and it's just gorgeous. You get good views. I think it's only like 3 days or something like that. But we did that as an outing, and it probably inspired me more than anything else. Any like other single activity that I've done prior to that it has been repeated since, but like that was like one of the first big ones where I was just like, I've got to do this. I've got to try this. I've got to do the harder version of this. I've got to go on the other side of those mountains that I see. Part of me said I want to climb those mountains. I'm just not there yet. Yeah. And so that really kind of stuck with me for a while. And so ever since after that trip, I kind of always planned on going back to Nepal, preferably by myself, because I wanted to do some solo hiking, to be honest. And I had some reasons for like soul searching and stuff out there at the time as well. But I also just thought it would add to the challenge, which
it did.
For some reason. Oh God, yeah. Absolutely. It did.
Okay, so here's the point where I'm like, take our listeners on this verbal journey, because you do have an audience right now. I know it's just me and you, but you have an audience that shares this common interest of loving to travel. And, I know not everybody shares the same perspective as travel. Some people like cruises, some people like camping, some people like RVs. We all have different perspectives, but we still share that common interest on this podcast of like getting out there and seeing new things and trying things new. So let me just start and just say, where in Nepal did this adventure start?
Kathmandu.
No. This whole trip started in Kathmandu. How did it flow from there?
Yeah. So there wasn't a ton of pre-planning involved. So Kathmandu was a pretty necessary first step. The goal was to do something by myself. And then I got there, I bought the guide, the book, not the book, the map. It's just a map that kind of shows you the Everest Base Camp trek and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I didn't feel good about it. So I, for the first trek, I actually hired somebody. Okay. So I went just through the hotel and just asked them for a recommendation. Like, hey, I'm going to do Everest Base Camp and maybe a little something else like that. I kind of wanted to do some of the passes. So originally we were going to do base camp with 3 other passes and ending in Gokyo Valley and going back down the Gokyo Valley. And so I chose a guide because I'd never done a high glacier pass in my life before. And I just didn't know what that entailed. This was the highest I'd been. Yeah, this was before Cotopaxi and Chimborazo for sure. So this was the highest I'd been. Just didn't know what a glacier pass looks like. I didn't know how to traverse that. I didn't have the skills.
And just for the listeners, what's the average height at that, like altitude at that point?
I think the passes are between 15 and 17,000.
Okay.
So not astronomical, but still pretty high. If I'm wrong on that, I'm sorry. I apologize, y'all, but that's it's in my head. So so I hired a guide for that specific reason, because I think I'd have been fine going to Everest Base Camp and back by myself. And for all of you guys out there, it's actually quite straightforward to do. However, the passes, I think I chose the right way, given my level of experience. Well, there's a story about that. Maybe I didn't choose the right. I chose the right way. I didn't choose the right person.
Oh my God.
And so, Kathmandu, it's, I guess, a pretty important information for this to kind of build the stories. This is in January. So it's quite cold. And I know it was going to be kind of cold. I just didn't have a lot of equipment and I didn't really know exactly what I needed to do as far as that goes. So I just went to the local market and we got a bunch of knockoff stuff, basically with the guide. He was like, yeah, you just need one of these and one of these. He was helping me save some money with it too. Probably because he knew I was just going to give it to him when I left. And so, so he did that. He arranged the ticket, the flight out there, which is the craziest airstrip I've ever seen in my life. You've been on it, right?
The shortest, one of the most dangerous airstrips to land in and take off in the world.
Yeah, it doesn't even feel like a football field, and it's at like 45-degree angles, and at the bottom of it, there is like a 1,000-foot cliff. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I guess they couldn't find anywhere else. So anyway, So it started like, any other kind of trek. It was just new and I wouldn't actually say that difficult. I'm not terrible at acclimatizing, so I was okay in that regard. And I'd done, some treks with heavy bags before. But also another preface for the story is this is a tea house trek. So you don't have to bring all of your own camping and your own food. We didn't have a porter, but you stay in tea houses, so you don't really need a porter for.
And just so the audience knows, because tea house was a new word for me the first time I went to Nepal, but it's basically just, if you want to think of it maybe as a hostel, very few amenities. Wouldn't you say that? You're giving me a look like you wouldn't. Like few amenities. You can share a room.
Mountain chalet.
There's not a shower unless you get lucky and can find somebody. How would you describe a tea house?
Well, I mean, all tea houses are someone's livelihood. So it's like a house connected to a hiker's, I don't know. Like you said, sometimes it's a bunkhouse or a bunk room. Sometimes they're individual rooms. Sometimes there's actual beds. Sometimes it's just cot on the floor. So it changes a lot. But the bare amenities are, it's a shelter. They serve you tea. And by far, most of their money comes off of you buying like food and drinks off. But it is, it's from what I've been told, an integral part of the economy, now. And so I don't have any problem doing that. As a matter of fact, I felt like I knew the money was going right to them.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like, so you go in tea houses, so you don't have to bring quite as much of equipment, which is really cool. So I really like that aspect of it. Just getting out there, getting used to the mountains, getting climbing, and then just finding those views and those giant bridges, like spanning those crazy rivers. The color of the water, just like so many unique things that I've never really seen before. That type of alpine, well, I don't know if you call it alpine forest, but it just had a really unique look, and then you get past this greenery and you just move into just a different world of verticalness, of just gray verticalness, just things that go up. And depending on where you're at in the valley or on a ridge, you get different views of that. And it really is. That's enough to be kind of like life affirming or changing or whatever you want to call it. It's incredible. It absolutely is incredible. And especially at night, seeing the stars up there is one of the more burned in images I have in my brain. Yeah, so base camp was great, except for how cold it was. I was completely unprepared.
What was the temperature
for that? It was like 15 below, I think.
Oh, below. Okay. All right. So it was cold.
At night.
I would say that's cold.
Yeah. It was very, very cold. They even said it was like abnormally cold. I think it was 15 below. It was either, I don't know if it was in Celsius or Fahrenheit.
Now that you think it. Did you have to was it one of those nights where you have to keep your Nalgene bottle inside your sleeping bag so it doesn't freeze all the way through?
Yeah. And that barely helped, to be honest with you. So it's like you breathe out, moisture, right? And so you just can't get... You can't get a break from it. So all that moisture just goes on the rim of your sleeping bag and it just freezes. Right. So you just have like a block of ice right across from your face. And it just slowly like stalactites down towards your mouth or something. God. I don't know. Yeah, really, really, really cold stuff. But base camp was okay. Like I don't feel like that's a draw in itself. It's definitely the journey up there. And we did that, is it called Kalapatar? That hike you do to see the sunrise on Everest. Now that was awesome as well. That was actually extremely more. That's the first time I ever felt that feeling of I'm just not as strong as I thought I was. I'm just like, I'm hiking, but I'm doing a step and I don't have any book bag or anything. And I'm just like, this is laborious. Like, this is difficult. I started talking to myself like a boxer. I'm not lying. Like, just trying to convince myself and like hype myself up for the next like 10 feet. And it's crazy because it's not that high. And I've gone on to do much higher, but I don't know. I guess just maybe kind of getting used to it. So that was an interesting experience for me. And then the fun kind of starts after that. So we start to go down to Gokyo Valley, and you have to do one particular pass. It turns out we couldn't have done two of the other ones. They actually ended up closing for safety reasons. They won't let anybody go do them. But Chola Pass was still navigatable. And so that was the one we decided to do. And that was a bad day. A really, really, really bad day for me. It started off with the worst pizza I've ever had in my entire life. Just, I can't explain.
That sounds terrible. Poor you.
Well, they had it was like a silver package. You open it up and it was just the breading. And I was like, okay, that seems like a decent start. And he's right here making it in front of me. Then he goes and grabs a bottle of ketchup and he just like squirts the ketchup in a circle, right? And then spreads it out with the back of a spoon. I'm like, that's not a good start. And then to top it, he grabs a bag of tuna and just dumps the bag of tuna on top in the middle. Doesn't cook it, doesn't do anything. There's no cheese and just hands it to me. I'm like,
no, I will pay you for this. I will pay you for this, and you can have it right back.
Yeah, I did, but I was very upset about it. But I did because it was his goods, but I didn't eat it. And so I went up there pretty tired already and kind of hungry. But we get to Chola Pass, and it's exactly what you think. It's like it's in a saddle in between two mountains, okay? But there's a glacier right there. It's too steep on the sides to climb without gear. We didn't bring any kind of gear or anything like that. Probably be pretty difficult to lead anyway. So your goal is you go over the glacier. So my guide, no problems, just looks up, just sits down, gets out his backpack, grabs some crampons. Oh, cool. He's got crampons. Kind of sit there waiting, waiting for mine. I'm like, oh, cool. This is going to help a lot. There are no crampons for me. And so I'm a little concerned at this point. I have a possibly irrational fear of ice. I don't like it. Okay. I don't trust it. And so he gets really upset that I didn't bring crampons. And I tried to express to him that I went shopping with you for this trip. Like I was hoping to know. I told we came on this trip thinking we were going to do 3 of these, and you didn't mention crampons. And so he is just frustrated, and he's worried about time. We got to get over this thing because we started late. And he just takes off. He was like, "Just let's go." And he takes off. I'm like, I give it like a couple little steps, like a baby deer trying to get on like a frozen
Yeah.
pond, and I just like slip and I can't get my purchase or anything like that. And it's significant. It's a probably 400, 300 yards or something like that I've got to go on this thing. And it's not all flat, right? Like it moves downward.
Oh my God.
And so that was the hardest thing. And it moves downwards, of course, where you would think it would, over an edge, right? To your death. And then among that, there are these giant crevasses, right? That it just like a chute of ice that just goes
Again,
straight down.
to your death.
To your death, probably, because I don't know who would find me. And that guy wasn't probably either going to come back and try and find me. So it wasn't a really good situation. I didn't feel good about it at all, but I didn't know what to do. He's almost like out of eye shot. I can barely see him anymore. And so I go looking around and I find a hiking pole that had been broken in half. And so somebody just ditched. And so it's only about 2 foot tall, maybe 2.5 foot tall. I was like, this is all I got. And so there was at least like a little bit of a sharp edge on that thing. And so also remember, I've probably got a 30 kg bag or 20, probably 25 kg bag on me with all my water and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I just go out on the ice, take 3 to 4 inch steps, right? And then jab that thing into the ground the best I can. But it's not really, it's a plastic tip. It's not like some hardcore tip or anything like that. And I do the same. And it's only 2.5 foot tall, right? So I'm crouched over with this giant book bag on slick ice, taking 2 tiny steps, jabbing it, 2 tiny steps, jabbing it. And I do that for God knows how long. And it gets to a point to where I'm able to kind of I don't know if you would call it meditatively or something, get into some zone where I can ignore just the danger that I feel. And in retrospect, maybe I overestimated the slant of it or something like that. But I do know, it felt dangerous enough to where he felt like he needed crampons,
Yeah.
So I felt like I was in danger. And that lasted 30 minutes or so, just the same thing. Just in inches, just inch,
Yeah.
inch.
Yeah. Was he could you hear him trying to hurry you up or anything?
Gone. Didn't see him. Did not see him for the rest of that day. Yeah, except for, excuse me, so wrong. He yelled at me through a fall zone to tell me I'm in a fall zone and to hurry down. And so I finally get past it. And he's almost down and working his way back up the other side now. And he's like, rock fall zone. He's just screaming at me. And he's like, move. I'm like, God dang it. So my just nerves are fried at that moment. And you don't have time to think. And then you just hustle, as best as you can down that stinking path and try and get out of that rock fall zone. And yeah, needless to say, I didn't talk to that guy for the rest of the trip. And it was a shame because Gokyo Valley is gorgeous and it could have been so cool to I don't know, get to learn a little bit more about the area and stuff. And I'm not blaming him necessarily. It was a rough situation. So I learned kind of a lot from that. And after that, I was like, I'm going to go on the next one of these by myself. I think no guide on the next one. And so I had kind of arranged, I spent 32 days on the trail consecutively. That's not technically true because I went straight from one to the next. So I did have a long day of travel in between. But I got to the end of the Gokyo Valley, just didn't say anything. I still tipped the guy, whatever is customary and stuff, and paid the second half of it and got on my way and went straight to Annapurna. I had my map and I was like, I'm just not going to do any high passes except for Throng La, which I know is a lot easier. At least that's what I thought. So I go straight into that and it's gorgeous. It's just exactly what you would think. It's just so lush in so many places. So much water. I didn't realize how much water was going to be there in January. I got drenched.
Was there a lot of snow on the ground as well?
Not at first, but yes. Okay. Eventually a whole hell. And so I went a couple days in there, and when you first go in via the house, I don't know what you call it, to register that you're going in, you have your permits, there's nobody there. Right. And so you just, on the honor system, maybe I just thought, okay, they'll check me on the way out to make sure I got my permits and everything. And for that month in January, there was only that on that list, I was the 18th person to go in to do Annapurna that month. And so for those of you who don't know much about it, it can get really stinking busy.
Yeah.
So it was really a cool and lucky, unique experience to get to go in there and not have to vie for space on a trail. I went days without seeing another hiker. I saw the owners of the tea houses and some of the villagers, but no other hikers for days.
Wow.
And then one day I start to realize, oh, the snow's getting like close to my knee, like it's getting a little thick. And that day I realized I saw from 0 hikers to probably about a dozen hikers going in the opposite direction. And so they all came down. So I thought, oh, maybe they came in from the other side. And they said, no, there was a snowstorm at the pass and it's just no one can go over it right now. And so they don't know how long it'll be. They think it's going to get worse. And so all those people who came halfway around the world to do that trip were just going to turn around. And I was like, I got like 3 more days before I get there. Like, it'll be fine. Maybe it was 2 more days. So I decided
Wait,
to keep
so a whole
forward.
group of people was like, we're not going to do this because it's impassable. And you were like, I'll try it anyways.
But they came from it. They were right there at it, said it was too bad, then came back. So it was multiple days since. Okay. And I had multiple days to get there. So I thought it was going to be a good enough buffer. So I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. I get
but
that.
Also, it's one of those things like I know I can at least get there. I didn't have a time crunch. I didn't even have a ticket leaving Nepal. I didn't book it yet.
Yeah.
Wait, I don't think I did. No, I told him I was leaving by bus, I think. And so, if worst case scenario, I get up there, no, I can't pass it and I'll turn around. It's fine. At least I got, the rest of the hike. And then things start getting really weird with loneliness and altitude it's the 2 things that I blame for it. And I start getting extremely odd dreams. Just so odd, so weird that I've never been so confused about reality, about my reality. Yeah, but I still loved it. I mean, all of this, by the way, I had a great time. I loved it so much. But I really did have some weird dreams. Like I'll try and be brief with them. They're pretty quick. So like one of them, it's this tiny. I got like a cot basically in a room, and there's like 2 feet beside me and like 2 feet, right there. It's a really small little room. But go to sleep, bundled up, and then the next thing you know, I woke up to something biting my toes. And I freak out, of course. And I'm like, what in the world is going on my toes? And I go for my headlamp, and I realize, oh my gosh, I left it actually in the dry sack. And I, for some stupid reason, put that dry sack on the bottom of my book bag. And so I just thought, I don't know. I guess I got lazy and I realized I think I was asleep. It must have been a dream. Nothing bit my toes. That's outrageous. That didn't happen. Right. And then I try and go back to sleep, and then it happens again. And this was like even more visceral. It was crazy. I literally felt the teeth. It wasn't even sharp teeth. Like I could differentiate. It was like flat teeth like ours. I think it was like flat teeth, and it wasn't like an animal attacking. It was just like slowly going in there. And like, I felt it like on the knuckles of my bone. And I immediately just like kind of like freak out. And I go into my book bag, and the only thing I can think of is like a light will, at least I have to see it. And I just throwing things out of my book bag, just tossing them as fast as I can. Dry sack after dry sack, just clothes kind of like exploding is what I remember, like hitting off walls. And I find the headlamp finally, and I'm shining it around, and I realized I have a sleeping bag on. Right? Like my toes aren't exposed. And so It must have been going on in my head. And I'm just freaked out. So I put the headlamp on my head and I just like leave it on. I'm like, obviously that was a dream. There's nothing, right? Like I look inside my sleeping bag, like I'm fine. And so the next morning I wake up, it's the first thing I think of is like, I can't believe that was so weird. Like how visceral. I felt something biting my toes last night. And I thought about, oh, my room's going to be like a mess, And I turn over and I don't notice any clothes. My headlamp is sitting undisturbed on the side bedroom table, and all of my clothes are in a full book bag, closed up and zipped up in the corner. So like the whole other part of the dream was where I thought I woke up because of the dream and started looking for the headlamp. That was also part of the dream. Like I was so confused about what happened. And I just never been so confused about reality. It was kind of crazy.
Do you think it was the altitude that did this to you?
That's the only thing I can think of. It's the only, that or loneliness or some sort of combination. Like I can't think of any other reason that I would be so confused about it. And like it messed with me for days. I was kind of nervous to go to sleep just because they're not like necessarily that scary of a dream. It's not like Stephen King came up with it. I was just legitimately confused about reality for a while. I just couldn't figure out. Yeah. Because it felt just more real than anything. So anyway, sorry. So we keep going. Snow gets deeper. And then you get to the last place you can get to the Throng La before you wake up super early the next day. And it's It's just the most gorgeous night I've ever seen. It is absolutely just stunning. I barely slept because I would like go in and warm up for 15 minutes and then go back outside and just stare at the stars for as long as I could. It was just absolutely
Wow.
wonderful. But that had its toll. There was actually another small group of people with a guide leaving the next morning. And I was like, this thing is just a field of ice about waist deep. Sorry, not ice, snow about waist
Right.
deep. And I was like, it's really kind of large. So I didn't
Mhm.
know exactly where to go. It's not like a little saddle that I can just be like, oh, in between there. So I thought, oh, I'll just wake up early, kind of hitch, within 50 meters behind them, just so I know where I'm going. I thought that'd be a great idea. But my stargazing didn't pay off. I slept in. I woke up. It was like already way past it. They were probably already done with the pass by then. I was like, oh, shoot. This is going to suck. So I talked to the owners of the tea house, and by then the wind had already blown the wind was pretty strong. The wind had blown all of their tracks away. And so I had no idea where to go, but the tea house guy just kind of like, pointing me out in the right direction. He's like, just start that way. And then
Yeah.
if you get high enough, you'll see a town, and like, you just kind of zigzag down, but like watch out for crevasses and, giant holes and hills. And so I started off on it because I don't know, it didn't seem that dangerous at the time. It seemed silly, but I don't know, it didn't seem that bad. And so I just start walking, and it's pretty slow going. It's pretty tough. It's really high snow. And at one point it's like kind of so thick you don't actually ever get down to the bottom of the snow,
Yeah.
And so at one point you're lifting your legs kind of out to the side more than you're lifting it up, like in front of you. And my foot kind of goes too far out to my right, and there's nothing there. And I just tumble down this hill. It's not big. I didn't get hurt at all, but I lose my glasses. And for anyone who's done anything like that, snow goggles for a reason, those things, those are
All right.
crucial on a bright day in the snow, because if you are looking down and the sun reflects off of pure virgin white snow really well, and it can burn your corneas. And so I was a little concerned that it would hurt my eyes, but I didn't know about any other repercussions besides, oh, this might hurt a little bit.
Wait, did you look for them in the snow, or you just kind of like they were
Yeah, of
gone?
course I did. They were bright red. I thought for sure I'd find them. I spent a minute looking for them, like a good probably 10 or 15 minutes. Just couldn't
Wow.
find them. Started digging. But like I said, I tumbled. So like all the snow got disturbed. So I couldn't really see where they might go. And it's really deep. So it was a lot of work just going around there. And I was on that hill. So it was a little difficult. And I decided to just kind of trudge forward.
Yeah.
And I had a sweater that I wrapped around my nose and then around my head just to try and make the slit of where my eyes were smaller, just to kind of get rid of some of that light. And that's what I did. And I just started trudging. It was hour after hour after hour of just staring at snow, because it's not like you can't look down when you're up there. Like, it's pretty dangerous, especially on the way down. It is treacherous on the other side. And so I don't really think about it that much, like I knew my eyes were hurting, and I kind of like closed them really hard to try and get some water to them and everything. But that night went really normal. I met up with some people for the first time, and had dinner with them. I had a yak burger with like a mint aioli. It was crazy.
That sounds good.
And it was really a good circumstance or happenstance that I met some people at that point too, because I woke up in the middle of the night. It was a small place, so I knew the people I met were just staying in the next two rooms beside me. I wake up in the middle of the night. My eyes were just kind of really that dry, hurt feeling, and I kept trying to like squeeze them. And when you're out there, there's not any lights on out there, so I couldn't really tell anything at first. I just thought I was in an extremely dark room until I get my headlamp. Like, I'm going to go and like wash my eyes and my face off. And I don't see any. I see like some blur of light, but I don't see any of the features or the form of the light. And I start to kind of freak out a little bit. And I kind of like feel on the wall to get to the bathroom where I know where it is. And I feel for the little exposed light bulb, and I pull the thing and I hear it clink, and I can see the shade change in front of my eyes. And I'm supposed to be looking at myself in the mirror, but I don't see it. You know what I mean?
Oh
I see like grays, and it's kind of orange. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And so it was luckily kind of early. And so I just go knock on the people's door next door, and he's super, super nice guy. He had apparently done that trek like every year for like 10 years or something like that. He just loves it.
Wow.
And he goes solo as well. He was a boss, some guy from Vancouver. And anyway, he knew exactly what it was. He was like, oh, dude, you got snow blindness. And I'm like, what is that? Like, did I just lose my sight forever? And he's like, no. You got burnt. It's like sunburn on your cornea. Like, you'll be fine.
I mean,
And
so
he just told me to go to
was
bed.
just that chill about it? He was like, "You'll be fine."
He was so chill.
Oh my
So
God.
stinking chill.
Yeah, I would have been freaking out.
And so, yeah, he told me just go back to bed and like, it'll improve pretty fast. And I'm like, okay, I hope so. So I just did the best I could to try and get some sleep. And he woke me up the next morning. And sure enough, I could see a little bit, but it was still just like shapes and forms mostly. There wasn't like a definitive line around a lot of things. So I was like, how in the world am I going to hike at 16,000 feet, down these mountain passes without being able to see? And so he asked me how I'm doing and everything. And I told him that I guess I'm just going to have to stay here for days. He's like, no, don't worry. I went and got you a pair of sunglasses. So he went and got me like some huge sunglasses already that had like the leather on the side, to like not let any really light in. He wrapped the thing around my head and he was like, we'll just do this together. And I was like, how? And he was like, dude, can you walk? And I was like, yeah. He was like, just put your hand on my shoulder and we'll go.
Wow.
And so I spent the next 2 days going from like where the Mustang Valley is, like all the way back down to the other side of Annapurna, just not seeing anything, just with like my hand on his shoulder. So I don't know. I think the second day was probably more for comfort, just because it was kind of coming in and out. So like I would like let my hand off some, but I mean, I would have been extremely in a nervous situation without that guy. That guy was absolutely awesome. That's for sure.
Dude, so yeah, he was an MVP. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So long story long. I finish it off. He goes his own way. When I can finally see again, this guy was like in super shape. So he just left me in the dust. I didn't have any like long-term damage or anything from the snow blindness. And I don't know, it takes me a couple more days, maybe like 5 or 6 more days, or I actually don't. Sorry, cancel that out. I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, so he dips ahead of me, and I'm just kind of left to my own devices again, and just to kind of soak it all in and enjoy that last kind of part of the trip. And it was really kind of surreal knowing that it was coming to an end, like I said, because at the end of it, it was like 32 days that I'd spent in tea houses and hiking. Overwhelmingly, those were either completely alone or basically alone, because my trekking guide didn't talk to me. Yeah. And so it was a really deep learning experience. I learned a ton about myself. I mean, so much. I went through weird phases where I didn't like myself. You're left with like this internal dialogue for so long. You go through, I don't know, some sort of like stages of grief or something, but it went through weird things where at first I was like, gosh, this is just awesome. Like I'm loving all of this. I'm appreciative. And then it kind of starts to be like, oh, this is hard. And you overcome it. And then you're like, man, I'm kind of cool. Like I'm special. I'm unique about
I'm
this.
better than everyone else.
Yeah. Right. Like I'm the coolest person there is. I don't understand. There shouldn't even be a matrix or a list. Like this is me. And then it kind of moves on for me, excuse me. I'm obviously not speaking broadly. This was just like kind of like my process. And then it moved into like so much time. I've just thought about hiking enough. Like I kind of went back and started going through so many things from my past and everything. And then the more you think about your past, at least me, excuse me, I was like, I don't know if I like myself. And so I went through like this really like self-deprecating stage, and I was kind of like hating on myself a lot, and I kind of got really sad and kind of lonely. And then you kind of dig out of it. You kind of come to like this interesting acceptance, and you're like, well, obviously I can't do anything about it. I can't live the rest of my life as a mope. And so you kind of move through that, and then you think with the same analytical eyes on the present, and that was extremely, extremely helpful as far as like enjoying what I was doing, learning from what I was doing, just analyzing my thought process, like how I thought, why I thought it, like just didn't leave anything alone. You know what I mean? Like we have so many things at face value. So it's just really cool to have so much time on your hands to just literally be able to contemplate whatever your brain could bring in. So not all shiny, right? Like it sucked. Yeah. It would have been probably really cool to share some of those things with other people, but I don't know what of that process I would have sacrificed by having somebody with me. You know what I mean? For one, we probably would have turned around at the pass. Like, I don't think I'd have put anybody else in any kind of danger or
Right.
anything like that.
Right.
So that, plus I wouldn't have been lonely. I don't know how much of that process I would have worked through. Fun little side story. I figure out a whole bunch about love during that process, which has been something that I had a hard time with up until that point. And just I still reap the benefits of that clarity that I gained on that trip about relationships and love to this day. Like, I feel the same way. Like, it wasn't some high I was on. Like, I figured something out about myself dealing with that.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It was just extreme in a lot of ways, and it was mundane in a lot of ways. You know, you get up, you do the exact same thing, and it seems pretty simple when you analyze it in a moment to moment, you know, and that's part of it. That's part of the challenge. Like, if you're training for some ridiculously long race, like, how do you do that? You just get up and you just run again. You know what I mean? Like, you don't run 50 miles every day. That's ridiculous. Just run a few each day, and then you increase it in a little bit, then increase it. And I can't remember where I heard it from, but they were talking about excuse my pronunciation, the mundanity. How do you say mundane? Mundanity. That's
okay.
It. Okay, you ready? I can't remember where I heard it, but they were talking about the mundanity of excellence, right? About so many of these people that you look up to and have done like amazing things don't have a lot of these really exciting lives. Like, they put in work every day. You know what I mean? Their lives are built around it, and they eat healthy. They don't drink. They get up early. They train and train and train. They do the hard stuff, the boring stuff. Most of their life is the boring stuff to get ready for that hard thing they're training for. So it's cool to kind of like just be in that process and kind of accept it for what it was. So it was really, really beneficial.
I love that that's your memory. I love that even though it was maybe 18 years ago, you know, you can still remember that the pizza sucked, that, you know, the way that you felt for the light bulb, just like your senses, you know, you had all your senses were just like invested in this trip. And to me, that's like some of the best travel, when you're feeling it all. And so I was talking to one of your best friends, Adam Massengale, who was also on this podcast, but you've grown up with him. I've grown up with him. And he reminded me that when before you went on this trip, you went with like little planning by yourself for for this portion of it. You did buy a map. I know that, but just, you didn't plan it all before you left. You didn't even have a whole lot of mountaineering experience before this point in your life. And I know you've got
none.
Yeah. I know you're more than a novice now, but at that point, I think, if you didn't think about crampons, then it probably, you weren't, really sure what to expect yet. So I do want to know.
Good point.
So like Adam and I, we were talking and we were like, I wonder, would he go on this same trip again? Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, with kids, the time, the thing that stops me now is the time.
Yeah.
My idea of what I want out of travel hasn't changed much. I just don't get to do it a lot anymore. And so with the kids, we don't fly by the seat of our pants. Even with just my wife, we still pretty much plan it. And I haven't gone on a trip by myself in a little bit. I got a few in Morocco, which I guess were my style. Like I did a week in Tagia, which is a super amazingly gorgeous kind of remote area of Morocco that has these huge multi-pitch walls. And so I'd only done like multi-pitch as far as like 2 pitches. I've never gone above 2 pitches. And so these were like 6, 7, 8, 9 pitch walls.
Wow.
They have higher ones. That was as high as I went. And so, that was pretty last minute, like you actually do have to use a map because my internet didn't work all the way out there. And so, a map or talk to people. And so that took me a while to get there. It's like, it took me like 11 hours. My car overheated. Like, you're in the middle of nowhere. You have to like stop at these hanuts and like keep asking towards the city. And then you get to the city and then they're like, oh, you keep driving past the city. And you're like, wait, okay. And then you have to go and the road ends. And like, you can see there's like a couple cars parked there and then there's like a trail. And so Tagia is not even reachable by road. So then you grab your
Wow.
stuff and then you hike into Tagia, which is like up this gorge and around a canyon or around a valley. And it's just stunning out there. And so that was done very last minute as well. I knew what to expect. However, I knew I could go walk in there and there's going to be a small town and there's going to be places with signs, and I would just choose one, go in and then I'd find a guide. So for that Nepal trip, you're right. I didn't plan anything except for I knew what the weather would loosely be like, and I knew it wouldn't be busy. So do I think someone should go and not plan anything at all? Depends on what you want to do, right? If you have some very particular, maybe large goals in mind, the more planning you have to do, the more flexible you are on what you get done or what you do or what you see. Sure, don't go plan it. And it's just as fun, just kind of like wing through it. So I got a little lucky it's not luck. So I didn't have to plan much because I knew I would have the opportunity to basically do what I wanted when I got there because I wasn't going to be vying for anybody else's, spot.
Right.
Everything was going to be open and everything was completely empty. So I could just do whatever I wanted. In retrospect, these days, the only thing I think I would change is I'd probably book the first 3 or 4 nights before going out.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Like I'm just, after you fly halfway across the world and you get out and all these people are just like yelling at you to try and get you to come into their taxi. And then you do, and you're not really sure where you got to go. So you have to go with their recommendation. Like, I got a good place.
Yeah.
And it's normally fine. It's okay. It's just more stress on top of like a tired situation. So the only thing I think I would do now these days is a little more research about the activity I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like I would bring crampons.
Right. Do I need crampons?
Yeah. And so I do a little bit more of an equipment search these days. And then I would figure out my first couple of days so that I can get my bearings. I know exactly where I'm going when I get in and I'm like blurry and I don't have any of the right money or anything like that. Even go as far if this is a step up, but like you could go ahead and arrange your airport transportation if you really want to get there and not think about anything until you're there. So yeah, I really appreciated it. That whole trip, that was the only thing planned was my in and my out. I wanted to go into Kathmandu and out of Singapore and then eat. We did plan meeting Katie in the middle. So I had to be to Thailand by a particular. But yeah, for the most part, it was part of the fun was to just do what I wanted to do that day because I had the time. I think we've all experienced this too. When you're at a place, you meet other people that do interesting things that you weren't aware of. And then that adds to your list. And when you don't have a big time commitment and like where you got to hit these things in the next 5 days, you can do that. You can augment, you can, call the audible. So there's like a whole bunch of benefits depending on the situation of like when you go. If you go in the busy season, unfortunately, you're going to have to be okay with a bunch of discomfort, probably sleeping on some people's couches and stuff like that or on the floor, or just go in the off season.
So this next question, it kind of piggybacks off your theory and perspective off the mundane that you talked about earlier. But for listeners who aren't aware or haven't done much research on the name Tenzing Norgay, he was one of the first people recorded to summit Everest. And he accomplished this goal with Edmund Hillary in 1953. So he was a Nepalese Indian Sherpa, the mountaineer. He was a master of his craft. And to this day, his name, his legacy is still respected and honored throughout Nepal, in many ways. As you travel through, you see his name everywhere. And so I kind of wanted the listeners to know a little bit about him so I can transition into my question for you. And this is my thought. On the summit of Everest in May of 1953, he was recorded to have spent about 15 minutes at the very top of Everest. And so even though he's attempted that summit many times before, and this was the one time in life that he stood on it, but still, he was standing on Everest, spent about 15 minutes. So after that, came back down, opened a mountaineering school. He was a hiking guide. He fathered 7 children. Like he went into, just back to life. And so sometimes I wonder for a man who had literally been on top of the world, who had felt that accomplishment, to come back down and do laundry, do dishes, to have kids, to get a job, to go back to work. Like, I wonder if that was a hard adjustment for him. And so I'm using this as a relevant example because I feel like it relates to so many of us travelers on a smaller scale, obviously. But for you, you have been to so many places, so many adventures all over the world. Do you feel like life in between travel is hard for you?
Um, Putting myself in his shoes would be pretty difficult because I don't, people who live in, how do I say it? So people who are nearer to more basic concern of survival probably value things a lot differently than we
Mm-hmm.
do. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so I don't know what his motivations were or anything like that. His goal, his whole life might have been to have 7 kids, right? And climbing Everest was just to facilitate that.
That's a good point.
So yeah, so it kind of depends. So for me, 7 kids is not my goal. This part of my life, sorry, the domestic side of life is not necessarily my goal either. However, I do want to be a good dad and a husband, of course. Those are important to me. Yeah, the decision to have a family it's a big complication in that style of life that I think I would like to live. But also, if I'm going to be realistic about it, it wasn't sustainable what I was
Mm-hmm.
doing. Like I was renting a crappy place, working my butt off bartending for 6 months, and then I would travel for like 6 months, and then back and forth and back and forth. Like that just is not really a good trajectory on what for stability in life and maybe moving on to the next thing. And even not to say you need to move on to the next thing. I think there's probably plenty of people who are very happy with doing exactly that. But I knew that I valued certain relationships over that goal.
Mm-hmm.
Of just traveling to as many places as I could. And my wife is one of those relationships that I do. And I think it's ridiculous to assume, any of those kind of like, let's call them the casualties of love, when you do decide to invest in relationships instead of something about yourself, like, oh, I love traveling. So it's not, I don't think it has to be like an easy decision ever. Like we kind of assume all the time that as soon as you get married, like, oh, of course, like that's the only thing that should matter, right? And, of course it does. Of course, I still dream about it all the time. I'm surrounded by travel books still. Like I'm plotting that next time, like I can get out there and do it, So it's difficult. It's really difficult, but not in a regretful way. Just in a new challenge kind of way. This is, sorry, I got off track there. What did you say?
No, you're good. I was just
Between-
asking you, like, if you felt like life in between travel is hard for you.
The short answer is yes. Life in between travel is hard. I get obsessed with all kinds of things now. But here's the thing, though. I've learned that you can do fulfilling things, of course, even in the same vein as traveling, right? Not just like investing in your future, like financially or relationship wise. You can still do things domestically that fulfill a part of that wild side, that feral cat inside us all. So like, yeah, you really want to go do something kind of crazy and dangerous, but don't kind of have, or not even dangerous, but just kind of crazy and off the cuff. Like don't have the money or literally the resources to leave your family for a long time. Like train for a 50 miler, do 100, crap. You know what I mean? Like you can do that here. And yeah, it takes a whole bunch of time and a whole bunch of effort, but like, that's kind of part of it if you want to reap those kind of benefits. So those are things like that, like trail running I can do right here in my hometown that I adore now. That gives me like that little adventure bump every single time I go. I just love it. Climbing is available almost anywhere. If it's not outside, there's probably a gym somewhere close to you. So there's still ways to feel like I'm doing something adventurous, which is, I think that's the core of the travel for me as of late, just because I've seen a ton of cultures. I've eaten a lot of great food. I've seen a lot of pretty places and took a lot of cool pictures from it. But what I these days lean into more, and I'm not doing this by choice. It's just what hooks me more is some sort of adventurous activity. Yeah. And so it does itch that scratch for sure. So it's not like I'm giving up on it while I'm in between travels. I still try and live by that ethos. You know what I mean? And it can be really difficult because, living abroad, going to school, when we worked at schools when we were abroad most of the time. Yeah. When we were driving to school, I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, it was really interesting. Like, you could almost hit like in your car a plethora of things.
A goat.
Chickens and ducks and goats and donkeys and carts
People.
and coffee trucks that like people, so many people. Like you never really know. A scooter, a goat on a scooter that's also a fruit truck. Like it's interesting what you can just like have to survive about, and it keeps life kind of spicy. And so it is. I haven't mastered this yet. Being here and trying to live with that fresh eyes mindset. So that's been difficult, but it is something I want to work on.
I remember years ago we discussed this, and you were like, I think it was like Mumford and Sons. We were talking about Mumford and Sons, and you were like, I liked them before they were popular, before everybody else liked them. And it was kind of like you were hating on them because now like everybody liked them. Maybe it could have just been our conversation. We could have been intoxicated. Who knows? But I remember it vividly, you being like, yeah, I used to like them before they were popular. And so I say that to say sometimes the travel snob in me, when I look at the saturatedness of what is Instagram, I'll be like, like sometimes I'm like, golly, like do I even like travel anymore? Because if this is the style of travel, if this is how everybody travels, like I almost feel sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to get to the point where all I'm doing is taking a picture of like the most beautiful things I've ever seen and posting like just, I don't know. I get real hateful nowadays, and I have to like sit back and take a breath. And I'm like, hey, guess what? It's all different. It's all relative. This is how they travel. I can travel a certain way. But I do find myself being like, oh, well, I like travel before it was cool. But you know what? Then people 40 years, grandmother and Papa Hugh and dad and mom can probably say the same thing about us. So like, look at these little kids traveling. I liked, traveling before women were even supposed to travel alone. Like, I mean, I know it can keep going back and, every 30 or 40 years, the generation behind them is probably, looking at the next generation like, ugh, are they? But I find myself doing that. Do you ever feel like that whatsoever?
Yeah, I've got some pretty strong feelings about this. I talked about it yesterday on a road trip to a concert with my friend. So it was brought up around music originally, and I relate it to traveling quite specifically. So my thought process on this, because you didn't actually prep me for this question at all. Like I really do have like a thought process on this. So it hit with my favorite band back in the day called Deer in the Headlights.
Ooh, good band.
I absolutely adored them. I got to see them so many times in like the smallest venues, and they were so small. Like they came out and like you could buy them a beer and talk to them afterwards. Like really cool things. They signed all the vinyls I had, and they make 2 albums, and then they quit. And like they say they quit for particular reasons, but like if they were making a bunch of money, they probably wouldn't have quit. You know what I mean? And so like my desire to keep them small backfired because they left my life because they maybe couldn't constitute living, right? Or making a living off of it. They said for different reasons, but the example still works. Okay. And so that was the first time that kind of struck me of like, holy crap, that is an incredibly selfish thought. And I mean, I knew it was selfish when I said it before, but like just the effect of why I would want that it's really short-sighted, of course. Why wouldn't I want my favorite band to do well? It makes perfect sense. I want them rich. They deserve it. And so I made the comparison pretty quickly in my mind to Antigua, Guatemala, right? Where we first used to go there, and it's not like it wasn't on the scene, but it had just gotten on the scene, right? And you felt really unique. You knew you stumbled upon something special, and it was so cool. And then, we've been back countless times since. And each time you go, it's like, it's less that place and it's got less of that soul. And you want to judge it somehow, right? But it's a ridiculous thought to want to keep them in this particular poverty because you want to go there and feel special. You know what I mean? Like, I want you guys to not advance. I want to advance in my home life, in my own country, of course. Like, we're going to continue building high rises and get EVs and stuff like that. But if you would do me a favor and still go bathe in the river every day for the rest of your life and not ever get a family car or access to medicine, so that I can come here every 3 years and feel freaking awesome, do that, please. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I can't want a culture to be stunted for my feelings. And I know your reference was a little different. Yours is like with social media. That one's a little harder to reconcile for me because is it helping or hurting what they're doing? You know what I mean? Like that is a bit tougher. I do feel like we are very disconnected from what we're going for. Like intent to me, intent has something to do with it. Like I think it matters, and it shows in how you travel and what you're doing. And like I can't, as much as I'd love to. I mean, I have an Instagram account. I take pictures of beautiful places. I haven't posted in a number of years, but like I still probably would. I'm not like above it. And I just felt for the longest time that like maybe I had the right intent and they didn't. But that water got a little muddy. I don't know. That might have something to do with me stopping. But to be honest, I haven't figured it out. It's tough. I don't know how to reconcile it. I don't believe a large mass of, let's just say, I'm not really familiar with the rest of the world, in this demographic, are going on trips for the right reasons. It might be to get that coveted shot in that coveted place at that coveted sunset time, wearing an extremely cute outfit, living the high life. And if that is your reason for spending thousands of dollars and going across the country or across the world then I think I can judge that maybe.
I mean, you can. It doesn't mean you're right or wrong, but yeah, judge away.
Yeah. I might not. You're right. I might not be right to judge that, because especially like, what if they make money off of it? Like that's their living. Then I can't judge that. Like I would love that.
There's so many circumstances, but you really did very much hit the nail on the head whenever you just talked about having a culture, having a city or a particular place stay in a certain state of poverty of what it is, so that we feel like we are doing something just out of the ordinary. So it's like, I went to this small little town that, barely has running water, and we didn't take a shower for a week. And so I can have that story, to tell. So I want these people to stay in this state of poverty where they don't have running water. Like I've thought things like that before. And then I have to like really come to realization, like, oh my God, I'm a crappy person for even remotely thinking about that. And I am aware. And I think that's one of the things you and I both are good at, being self-aware. And that is something that traveling has made me better at, being self-aware, but I really think you make a good point with that.
With Nepal actually in mind, this was another one that sticks out of my head, maybe even before Antigua. Honestly, maybe I got that timeline wrong. The first time me and Matt went, we had to walk to the trailhead from Pokhara. It's like, I don't know, it's probably like a little less than 20 kilometers, but it was a beautiful walk in this valley. All of the buses went on strike. And so they were like, if you want to go do this, we got to walk to get to the trailhead. And we're like, of course. And it was during like a rice harvest season. And I just was blown away with how gorgeous it was. Everyone was out there working in like their traditional garb. There was just like some stone houses everywhere. Like I took some awesome photos, I'm gonna be honest.
Of course.
And then the next time I went, I almost was tempted to just walk to the trailhead. But sorry, I actually ended where I started that time. Sorry, on the second trip. I ended where I started with Matt. So I was tempted to walk back to Pokhara just because I wanted that. I just walked 32 days. It wasn't going to matter if I just do this one. Another 19K. And I actually started to do it. And I changed my mind because of that feeling. Everything was different. I could barely see the rice paddies now because the whole road is filled with like 3-level houses. And I had that thought. I'm like, man, this sucks. I'm like, wait a minute. I prefer them living in stone houses. Like now they have like machinery to help them get the rice and everything. And like, that disturbs me. Like that's a messed up thought.
It is.
Yeah. But maybe that selfishness, maybe that's what I'm trying to relate to the, gosh, I don't have a good reason or a good thing to call him. Maybe Instagram traveler. Is checking that you're not doing that trip for purely selfish reasons, right? Like if there is some sort of self-acknowledgement or self-realization attempt, some attempt at getting to know a culture or making sure that your money is going in the right spots to benefit the culture and not some foreign owned entity that's operating in that country just to they sell you the ticket, you get there, all your money goes to them in the first place, and then they get you out of there as well, and you barely contribute to the economy. So like making some of those conscious efforts to be more of a part, to be more aware of what your place is when you're traveling, you know what I mean? And maybe that can at least be helpful to travel with less selfish intentions. But it's not like I'm void of that either.
And none of us are. None of us are void of it. I mean, we're all guilty of it in some capacity or the next. Okay, so listening to Nepal, I know you could go on for hours and hours, but I love how you just gave us a little bit of insight. Shut up. Just a little bit. You gave us a little taster of just the amazingness that is Nepal. So I had reached out to some of your friends, and I swear to God, I was like, look, I'm interviewing Ryan on Nepal. You have any questions, that you would want me to ask him? There were so many. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do all those. So what I did is I narrowed it down to 10 questions that you are going to quickly give me a one-word answer to, like a yes or a no, or just a one-word answer to, and focusing on Nepal. And are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Here we go. Number 1, would you drink the water?
I have. Sorry. Yes.
Yes. Would you summit Everest?
Yes.
Tea house or resort?
Tea house.
Did you feel safe?
No.
Sorry.
I mean, I have to think of particular times, right? I can't. There were particular times that I drank the water. Should I have? No. There were particular times that I didn't feel safe.
Okay. Number 5, were the Nepalese friendly?
Yes.
Number 6, name one thing you would avoid if you went back.
Kathmandu.
Number 7, best meal you had there.
Momo.
Oh my God. Oh, Momo's. Just want to throw that shout out to Momo's. Delicious. Number 8, are there places to hike for people of all skill level?
Yes.
Okay. Number 9, if I don't hike, should I still visit Nepal?
Absolutely.
And number 10, would you go back?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
I can't exclaim my fervor to go back. I mean, yeah, there's so much more I do. There are sections of it that I still have dreams that I'm going to do one day. I read the Snow Leopard while I was out there, and that takes place in a really awesome, remote western part of Nepal that I want to get to so bad. Yeah. And you feel cool when you're out there, and you're like, you know what I'm doing? I'm like, I spent 30 days on the trail, and you're bragging to people afterwards. And I met this girl who was there to try and link up with her mom, who had started in the easternmost spot. She was in a group of 8 people. They were walking the entire length of Nepal.
That's amazing.
The entire thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, of course, yeah. So she's like, oh, she's 4 months in. I'm like, oh my God.
That's one of the things I love about travel is just meeting people and hearing their story. And you're like, wow. Because sometimes you'll meet people and in your head, you're like, yeah, I'm cooler than them. And then sometimes you're like, wow, I am nothing, because that is amazing.
Unless you're Alex Honnold, you're not the coolest person out there doing whatever you're doing. You're just not.
Yeah, 100%. So there was one more thing I did want to say. Even though you had a not the best experience with your guide, totally get that, happens in life. I want to point out that whenever I went to Nepal, I did not get a guide, but I actually met one on the trail and became his friend, even though he was not my guide. He was like, oh, you should come stay in my family's tea house. Sure, man, let's do it. We had some tea over the little wood burning stove, and I got to know him and about his family, and I watched him and his interactions with his group, and I was like, wow, if there was going to be a guide for me to get, that was a guy. So I did want to point out, just for anybody thinking about Nepal, that maybe do your research, or maybe ask around, or maybe get suggestions. But yes, not all guides are amazing, but some of them are simply amazing.
Very sorry, I didn't even realize that I was coming off that way. Yeah, I had the one Nepali that I didn't get along with as my guide. Every single other Nepali I met was a whole different
Yeah.
situation. And maybe, I mean, we started off fine. Maybe I just like annoyed him to death or something. I don't know. But every other Nepali, funny enough, you say this. Me and Matt, when we did that first trek, like the 3 or 4 day trek, that guy, his name was Tilak Shreka, and he's still. That was, oh my gosh, that was 21 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe. No, not that far. 18 years ago. He still sends me 2 messages every single year on my birthday and on New Year's.
Wow.
Every single year. And he's got my name in it. It's not like a mass text. It's like, hey, Ryan, just wishing you a Happy New Year.
That's
Every year.
awesome.
So he's fantastic. He gave me my first, his book gift. He was reading my father's favorite book at one point was, besides the Bible, was The Old Man and the Sea. And I loved the idea of, and I liked the book too. And I loved the idea of, Hemingway did inspire me to travel a little bit when I was younger. And I started collecting that book in different languages because of Tilak, my first Nepali guide. He was actually reading it. And I can only tell because of the cover. It was like an old man that you can imagine, like a big marlin sailfish going behind him. Like, what do you mean? And so he like hurried up and read it on our little tiny 3-day trek, so he can like give it to me afterwards, like as a gift. So he started my collection, which is still going on now, actually. So yeah, awesome. Absolutely. Nepalis are super, super warm. I've almost all good experiences with them, except for just one.
For sure. Okay. And then last thing is, because I am your sister and there's only so many nice things I can say about you. Like I was really like pulling them out for my introduction earlier. Like I was like, whew, I got to think of some good things to say. So instead of ending it where I say something good about you and thanking you, I have 3 quick little sentences to read to you from 3 of your friends. And it's kind of saying, attesting to you how much they love you in the travel realm. So first one is Stephen Johnson. He says, Ryan is a daring wanderer, eager to explore and experience everything a place has to offer, and never one to turn down an opportunity for a new challenge. Does that sound like you?
I'm going to put that on my resume. Thank you, Stephen.
That should go on your resume for sure. The second person that wanted to give you a shout out, and because he's one of your biggest fans, is Jason Willis. Okay, he said, my first impression was he kind of looked like me, but way more attractive looking. It seemed like everyone in that bar knew him, and now I know why. He invited us back to his apartment after his shift on the first time meeting him. It was then I learned that not only did he have exceptional taste in music, but just how much travel inspired and shaped him as a person. It was this moment, I wanted to be his friend. And 15 years later, I'm happy to report that I still am. I thought that was nice of Jason.
This part is hard. Yeah, that's extremely flattering.
That, I know that, this is a whole other subject, but I'm sure travel has inspired your taste in music along the way as well. And I know that's what y'all connected on. I remember that. And last one, I saved the one that kind of made me tear up a little. And I was like, okay, Aaron Moon, way to be a writer, So this is, if you listen to Not to Sound Like a Hallmark Movie podcast of mine, this is Aaron Moon. And this is what he said. He said, I think Ryan is in fact a rarity in this life. His brilliance, his passion, his experiences, his photography perfection, and his humbleness regarding seeing so much of this beautiful world via his travels. It all equates to his amazing character. He's seriously one of my favorite people. I pray he publishes a photojournalist type book showcasing the world through his eyes and his lens, as I would be the first in line to buy it, try for an autograph, and while at the same time simply geek out. So I just wanted to let you know that even though I don't have very many nice things to say about you, a lot of people do. And you are, even though you are quite humble in your travels, people that meet you, and I know you say it might be because there's a time and the place to talk about travels, and most people in their everyday life don't care, but you do have a humility about you with it. So just to be able to sit here and talk travel and just know that people that do know you in this life, like, really do think highly of you and love your stories. So thank you for sharing a little bit of it with us.
Yeah. Wish you'd prep me for that last section. No, of course, the pleasure's mine. I like you mentioned before. I don't always talk. I haven't like told those stories. I don't think in a while, or all of that. I don't think I've ever told that story that lengthily. Like that complete. So, thanks for getting me on here and helping me relive it a little bit. That was fun.
Well, thank you for everything. I know you got to go get your girls, your kids, but namaste and have a great night.
No.
Peace. All right. Bye.
Bye.